trying to get my glass. Hi, is that Iris right there?
That's Iris.
Hi. Start video.
There he is.
You did it, Chief.
All right. I had some help. I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. Teamwork. That counts.
Yeah, well, I was in the shower.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah. She said, yeah, she next room. She said, yeah, you're welcome.
Where's everybody else? Maybe they forgot.
Still 5 more minutes.
Yeah, but usually they get on pretty early. They're cutting it close.
Yeah. Actually, my public be heard. It's a good thing Clayton's on.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh.
It's just coincidence
Yeah.
of what I was going to say.
He's like, uh-oh, my camera's not working. Oh, there goes my sound.
Yeah. Look, the electric just went out.
It has nothing to do with defunding the police department, does it?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to put Clayton at ease there.
Yeah, no.
We're
It has
already
nothing to do with that subject.
Okay.
We're already at bare bones. Oh.
So next time, Ashley, I should let you start the meeting from your computer at home. And that way you can.
Yeah, because then I can let them in and I can mute people. I won't be able to mute anybody.
Okay, but I can mute them all at one shot, right? Mute all.
Yeah, on the
I see that button.
You can it'll even pop up. You can say, click, do not allow them to unmute themselves.
Oh. Mute.
I haven't had to use that yet.
Enable.
That's just in case people get rowdy.
So here's one, allow participants to unmute themselves. So if I unclick that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you mute yourself, Ms. Councilman Hepner?
There.
Okay. Mr. Kimball, you're going to behave yourself tonight?
You didn't ask me if I was a mutant. I mean, if I muted.
All I want to know is, are you going to behave yourself?
Yes.
No.
No additional meetings of any kind in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I have already grown tired of the Saugerty School Board. They are gone, and yeah. So thank you for making me feel bad again. And,
We try.
Yeah.
So still waiting for 3 council people.
I like the way the progressive commercials where they say, you need to mute. You need to mute. Well.
Oh yeah.
This just happened at the Saugerty School Board where one of the board members was discussing the absentee ballots, and they say, Katie, you have to mute. And they keep on talking. They come back and go on. They say, Katie, you have to mute. I am muted. We can still hear you. And I'm going to mute.
Okay.
And when you guys go live, I'm going to turn my video off. So.
How are you, Felicia?
Oh, doing okay.
I talked to Lauren not too long ago, and he said he would be live at 7.
Live. Oh, so he's going to wait, right? Well, here's 7 coming.
I know it.
Here's Laura Ricky. So we got a quorum anyway.
Laura's on.
Yeah. Here's a call-in user. Running?
Yeah. Just wondering about the volume. Seems pretty.
I have 6:56.
6:50. Oh, I have 6:58, and my computer says 7 though.
It's a 7.
Oh,
7.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
my-
early.
My
My
computer,
cell phone says 7.
my computer says 7 also.
Okay.
Mine too.
I'll give them 1 more minute, and then I'm going to start.
So who's calling user number 1?
What?
Who's calling user number 1?
I have no idea. Who's
Should
caller?
Identify yourself.
Reggie, hold on. Let me.
You may have to unmute them for the first time, Bill,
There's Reggie.
in order for them to talk.
Hello? Who's calling user number 1? Can you hear us?
I wonder if that's me, Marcel.
Oh, hello, Marcel. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Welcome to the meeting.
What's that?
Welcome to the meeting.
Yep, here we are.
I'll give Lauren 1 more minute.
is Maria on?
Maria Lane is on. Yep.
I'm on. Okay.
And Jackie, just for the record, we have the press. Nick Henderson from the Times is here. Bill Kimball from the Freeman, and Felicia Kasich from Woodstock 104.1 FM.
Okay.
You're welcome. So I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Woodstock Town Board for June 9th. And I'm going to start off, hold on, let me just click that person on, with a little statement. The town of Woodstock denounces the senseless murder of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police officers. We are in full support of the peaceful demonstrations across the country that seek not only justice for in Mr. Floyd's name, but for the countless individuals who have suffered before him. We stand by all those who continue to push for systemic reform across the spectrum of all government and police aid enforcement. Recognizing that such reform begins in our own backyard, this town board created the Woodstock Human Rights Commission. We remain committed to their mission and the need to give voice to any individual who has felt discriminated against by town personnel. Since its formation, the Woodstock Human Rights Commission has worked closely with Woodstock Town Board and the Woodstock Police Department to develop a policy that promotes unbiased policing. The commission is currently developing a personnel policy that will apply to all town employees and volunteers and ensure equal treatment for all. To that end, and recognizing that no system is perfect, the town of Woodstock urges anyone who believes they have been subject to biased treatment to contact the Human Rights Commission. As both town employees, elected representatives, and volunteers, we have a responsibility to ensure that town government is held accountable to all citizens. With that responsibility comes the need to listen, to understand, and to deliver change when change is required. It is the responsibility that we must carry each and every day, and not one that only comes to the fore following the senseless murder of a fellow citizen. With that, I will open the floor to any other board members who might like to add to that.
Nicely said, Bill.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, yes, nicely said. I do want to add some of my own.
You're welcome, Bill.
I do want to add some of my own thoughts and comments. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
But certainly as a town board member, I do want to go on record saying what happened to George Floyd was horrific. It was upsetting. It was clearly wrong. It was unthinkable, except for the fact it really happened. It was unthinkable, but real.
Mhm.
And it demonstrated the reality that minorities have been living with. People talk about it, but the world got to see it firsthand, and I'm glad to see that the world has woken up. All the millions of people that demonstrated worldwide is an awakening that, and already different levels of government are looking to make some real change. So if there is a silver lining to this, it is what I hope to be the real change that will come at different levels of government. Part of what was so appalling was as the police officer took this action, this unthinkable action, he did it so calmly, as if it was okay and as if it was accepted. And it can never be accepted. And again, I'm very glad to see the demonstrators who have been out making noise and the legislators at different levels of government changing police practices. I would also like to say that as a resident of Woodstock since 1980, a longtime resident of Woodstock, I have the highest regard for our Woodstock police force. Everybody should know that whenever we interview a police officer, Supervisor McKenna is the first one to say, but all of us agree, in laying out the expectation that any police officer in Woodstock, the expectation is they will de-escalate a situation. So the town board makes it clear to every prospective police officer, and of course Chief Keefe is in the room with every interview, so he hears it all the time. As a board, we very clearly state it, and we state it repeatedly, that we are looking for officers that de-escalate situations. And from having been around the Woodstock Police Department, for different things that have come up through the years, again, I have the highest regard for our police department. And as Bill says, if anybody does have an issue, the Human Rights Commission is your avenue to say so. This is what happened to George Floyd is the worst thing that could have happened, but even worse than that is that we know it's happened all over the place all the time. And again, in summary, I sure hope that we get the social change we need for fairness and equality and safety. Police should be protecting everybody and not picking who they will and won't. And again, our police in Woodstock, I believe, are protecting everybody. And I hope across the country, and where it needs to be corrected, I hope it is correct.
Okay, I just want to jump to
Thank you,
Richard.
Laura.
Hey, can I say something?
But just let me say one thing, Richard, because I want to give you credit, because you really helped put this all together for me, these words. So I thank you. And anything else you'd like to offer?
Thank you, Richard.
They're nice words, but now what do we do going forward? I think it's time to start rethinking some things. I'm glad to see the chief on here because I agree with Laura. Our cops do a wonderful job. I don't know what that background noise is. But we've heaped on the cops, our police officers, much like teachers, duties and issues that were traditionally not necessarily police duties. We got mental health issues, we got addiction issues, we got domestic abuse issues. And I think it's time to start thinking as we move towards budget, as we have to hire a new police officer or something, how we're going to expend our funds in those directions, and possibly bringing on people who have backgrounds, more of a background in mental health issues. How we do that needs to be explored. I'm not suggesting we talk about it now or the specifics, but I do think we need to rethink some things. And bringing everybody to the table, not just the Human Rights Commission, but the union, the police officers themselves. Mm-hmm. How can we better help them do their job? And what does that mean in terms of how we budget, how we hire in the future?
Thank you. And thank you again for helping really put an elegant statement together. So, Lauren or Reggie, Maria Elena, you have the floor, Maria Elena.
Well, okay. No, I just wanted to thank everyone because I too had been asking about, how can we as a town, talk about this and to further, be supportive, especially for the Black community. Just this past week, I went as a representative, not just from the town, but from the Women's March to the Kingston Black Lives Matter protest. It was very peaceful. And for me, while it's important to have a voice in our own town, I felt it was also important to go and be supportive for our neighbors right next door in Kingston, so that they know also that, we care, and to be supportive of the Black community. So thank you for saying what you said. And it is important that we all come together and to look at systemic racism and to understand it. We look at ourselves and we help with one another and reach out to the Black community and see what it is that they need help with. So I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilena.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I think that our police department is fabulous. They are half social worker. In this town, they got to be 3/4 social worker. But we are very, very fortunate to live where we live. I want to thank Clayton and the rest of the guys. It's not easy, but I grew up here. I didn't even ever get to see a Black person until high school. They weren't here, but I've never had a problem with them because I don't look at anything but whether someone's a good person or not. And actually, that still goes for Republicans too, although it's not easy some days. But I do think our police force is pretty special. So thank you again, Clayton.
Thank you, Lauren.
Am I muted or I'm unmuted?
You're on.
So I'll just say briefly, I do love living in a town where you see so many people behind this and being aware. As Lauren said, it's not comfortable. And I understand that for any of us to kind of look inward is difficult, right? And we can look at things that maybe we don't think affect us and dismiss it. But I think one thing that I think as a society that we lack is a basic empathy, which is, sympathy is one thing where you look at that and go, isn't that terrible? Empathy is where you're able to really put yourself in that other person's shoes. I think the more empathetic we can be and the more that people can realize that having empathy for other people, being ready and willing to speak up when you see suffering, even if you don't quite understand it, taking the time to really understand that and not to allow yourself, when you feel that defense mechanism, to kind of kick up and go, well, not me, right? That we will really push through that voice to really think about how we care about others, whether they are Black, white, heterosexual, homosexual, trans, whatever. That I would encourage us to, it can be very easy to look at certain things and to get on, to feel like it's not me. But I think we all have a role to play, and that we all can certainly have in a society where people have a real caring about each other, and we just don't look at the world and go, well, if it's not me, I don't give a damn. Because really, the more that we're all uplifted, the better that is for all of us. So I just encourage people. I know that I've seen the support in what's going on and calling for a change in our country. I definitely agree with that. And if you're, feeling like this is not something that you can be a part of, I really encourage you to rethink that, because we all can do work. Yes, I do believe there is a such thing as white privilege, but I know that privilege exists in different ways for everyone. So we all can look at how we have privilege and looking at how we can build and pull other people up when they don't have it. So it's caring enough and having enough empathy to look and see, to not be blinded to the fact that others are suffering, and that we can play a role in different ways in ending that. And that's all I'll say. And I will say also, I feel like we have a great chief who is open. I don't know every single officer that I can think of personally, but I know we've got some really good officers. And I do encourage folks to speak up, and I know the chief does also, that this is a different kind of town. But I would also say, we should never be too careful and complacent and rest on that. I hope the chief is with us a long time, but we should set a pattern and a precedent that officers know and that people in this town know that we won't stand for anything like what we've seen going on in this country, and that we'll be an example for how to do it differently. And whenever we hear otherwise, we'll address that. And I know I went on a long time, but that's it.
That's okay.
Thank you, Reggie.
Important issue. It sounds like we all agree. I think we have a wonderful police department. We've got a great chief, and we're all human. We all make mistakes every day, and we just have to continually check ourselves and strive to be a little better. So, Chief, did you want to add anything to that?
I'd like to say thank you to all the board members, for all your support. And I've been with Woodstock a long time, lived here all my life, and and I think a lot of this town, and and we do take a very conscious effort to get the right officers to work in our community. And what happened out in Minnesota was wrong in the in the eyes of the police field. I don't know if any officer that said that was is supportive of that. It was wrong. And what needs to be done is it's been an issue for years, is that New York and the state of California, I mean we're ahead of a lot of other states with our training, and we're the requirements to be a certified officer it's pretty strict in these states, and the rest of the states have to come online with it. It's a lot of effort. There's a cost with it, but it needs to be done, and it's something that the nation has to certainly come together and do as a whole, not just one state at a time, but this is the time for all the states to make their standards higher.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask Clayton, because this came up. I think I saw it somewhere on Facebook that someone made the comment that all a person has to do is take a class or two from the community college and they can come get a job as a cop. Could you just address for a minute the requirements for training?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, they started a program. It's called a Phase 1 and Phase 2 type of program. You can any civilian can go to the college. You'll take a 16-week program full time, or a 6-month program for part-time hours. In order to get college 30 college credits, and also to complete the Phase 1 step. But the Phase 2 is you don't get into moving to Phase 2 until you get hired by a police department. So there's a whole another background interview and an investigation to each individual so this the Phase 2 once they get hired is very tough and and not everybody completes it but if they do complete the Phase 2 they come back to each police department, and the state New York State requires 20 full 8-hour shifts as a minimum to be a field trained with a certified officer, not just any officer, but if the person has to go through a special week school, be a field training officer.
Right. Okay.
And so some officers need a little bit longer. Some departments do longer than the required 160 hours. And we play, but in our town we take each officer's different. Some officers need only the minimum. Others need another month. Each officer's evaluated different. And we just had one officer just recently that before his field training back in December, he decided that he wasn't going to come fit for Woodstock, and and I'm glad of that. That's what the field training program is for, to certainly get the people that are suited best for not only our community but for the police field in general.
Right.
And I also like to say on top of that, we increased our, a couple years ago, our probation period. Once we do, you'll hire somebody full time, from 6 months to a 1 year period. So there's that, that additional, oversight.
Review and oversight.
Yes.
So I do have to ask, a member of the public contacted me today and asked me a question if I would ask you. She would appreciate to find out if the Woodstock police, if any police officer has ever been invited to train in Israel.
To my knowledge, there's never been any invitation or any officer ever attended any training.
Okay, I will let that person know. Richard, you mentioned before about social work and whatnot, and it is one of the things for our police. The first question I ask is, we're looking for a part social work, part psychologist, part police officer. One of the things that we could look at moving forward is that we do have mandatory training, and maybe we should start to focus more on mental health issues for these mandatory trainings. So.
Well, that's kind of my point.
Yeah, I agree with you.
In terms of how we're going to go about it specifically, we need to flush out. But yeah, more mandatory training, whatever the chief suggests. We need to flush that out. I think we need to vet into their college transcripts more and look at that a little bit closer. There's lots of things we could do. I just think we need to start thinking. It takes a murder of a fellow citizen to go down this route, and that's terrible. But this is the opportunity we have right now, and I think we need to explore it and digest it and figure out the best way to go for Woodstock.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add, that the Ulster County, and the Sheriff's Department, the last couple of years that they have put together a week-long crisis intervention training for police officers, and we send one or two members, but when that class comes up, they'd had one scheduled for the spring, but they had to cancel it due to the COVID-19 crisis.
So this is something we could work with the sheriff and the state police in looking at some group trainings along those lines as well. So, okay. Anybody else on the board have anything they wanted to add? Chief, you're good. Iris, I think you wanted to talk on this subject for a minute. I'm going to unmute you. Let me find you. Iris. Okay.
No,
Iris?
not this subject.
Oh.
Totally different subject. I wanted to do a public be heard.
Okay, I'll let you go on for got 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm on? Okay.
Go.
Yeah, on Saturday, I took a ride into town at about 4:30, actually just to see what was going on. And it was kind of crowded. And some people were wearing masks and some were not. And in our town, there's no way you can social distance. The sidewalks aren't even wide enough, and you can't be walking where there's traffic. So it was a little scary to look at. And so a question came to my mind whether we were going to do any kind of reminding or enforcing, because if you can't social distance, everyone is supposed to wear a mask. And, not just walking into a store, which you can't do right this second. Oh, well, actually, I think now we're in phase 2. But it just looked scary that some people had masks on and some didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if there was going to be any enforcement of it.
Chief, do you want to feel that?
When we get safety concerns about this, we do speak to people. It's really tough. When people are out in the open, to enforce that. Because it's a guideline. That face mask wearing, and I don't know of any rule that or law that's going to be broken. If somebody that doesn't wear a mask. But whether if they go into a store, the store can literally, or a business, you can literally, you'll tell somebody you're not allowed in here, and so if they refuse to leave, then it would become a trespass. But we're really in a tough position to enforce that out in the open.
I will also add that a couple of times on weekends through town, 2 weekends ago, there was a group on the Village Green. And then I did call dispatch and ask the police to go down, which And I got a call back about 20 minutes later, and they did. And, what they observed was that, while there were a number of people there and some had masks and some didn't, everybody seemed, for the most part, to be socially distancing. And, unless a police officer is there and see somebody walk by, it's tough to do anything about that. It's frustrating for all of us.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a little scary, especially now with the rise of numbers in other states because they've been open. So, but I thought there was actually, when the governor made one of those executive orders, I thought that he did say that you had to wear a mask if you couldn't social distance. And
even the governor says it's a recommendation. I can't force you to wear a mask.
Yeah.
So,
it's a law. It's not a law. It's an order, and there's a difference.
Yes.
An executive order, right?
Yeah.
But it's not,
I had this conversation with an individual called somebody new to town, been here since January, and it turns out she's a career public defender. And she says, well, it's the law. I says, well, no, it's not. It's an executive order. And by the end of the conversation, she realized, we can't go out and be issuing tickets that they wouldn't hold up.
Yeah.
All we can do is really strongly urge. Now, stores are different because they're private property, and they can set guidelines and rules. Remember the no shoes, no shirt, no service orders from back in the hippie days. That still applies.
Yeah. Well, I'm not walking in the afternoon in town.
Yeah.
I'll take one of my other routes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Iris, you did start out by saying you had two questions. One was enforcing, one was reminding. I don't know if you noticed, but the two signs did go up when you come into town on 375. In that triangle where 375 hits 212, there are two signs so that no matter which way you come from, you can pretty well see one of the two signs. We had some discussion of whether signage, and the sign says, please keep Woodstock safe, wear a mask, social distance 6 feet, wear a mask. So the same sign, we do have a resolution we passed at a previous meeting.
No, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. That said we have a $200 budget for signs. The first two signs, I fortunately was able to procure for free because somebody had materials. If we want more signs, we'll have to use some of the $200, but we did approve $200 budget. So if we thought that one or more signs in the green would make sense, and if we're allowed to put it, if we pick a spot where we're allowed to put it, that would be a way to remind. And so it really is, if 3 of the 5 board members say, let's put a sign there, all I would need to know is what size sign do you want? Do you want 2? So maybe a back-to-back sign. So on 212, no matter which way you're coming, there's a sign on the green. The ones on 375 are 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide. In the green, since it's mostly pedestrians, maybe a smaller sign would be okay. But if you're thinking that the way to remind people is a sign or 2, that is possible. It's really what the board consensus asked for.
I think it would, on the green, especially because there's so many people in the middle of town, might be a good reminder.
Okay.
That's up to the town board, but I would like.
Felicia's going to.
On the green, maybe have one of those big, inflating guys that goes like this.
You heard that.
I didn't hear that.
Felicia recommended one of the, the big inflatable signs they have of the person that kind of blows up and down waving.
Oh, yeah,
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask, right.
So moving on, topics. Gentlemen, under topics, do either of you have any presentation to make? Councilman Hapner or Councilman Rose? No.
I think we ought to put a mask on Jake and Elwood.
Jake and Elwood. No, but under topics, do you have any comments for topics? Is there a report to give?
I thought there was a golf to be specific. Golf was on the agenda, I think.
Are Jake and Elwood, are they the geese that are swimming in the pond that you guys hit every once in a while?
No, they're the Blues Brothers out there.
Brothers.
Oh. Okay.
So Councilman Hepner, no golf report?
Well, the golf is, we've run into some serious problems because we actually are playing together on a team now.
Oh.
And the very difficult part of that is we have to root for each other. And our game is not based on that. So
Well,
we're working our way through it, but it's going to take some getting used to.
unfortunately, I couldn't find anybody else to play with. So if anybody else is out there, let me know.
You were scraping the bottom of the barrel? Is that what you're saying?
I went through the bottom.
Okay, so I will move on to a couple of resolutions then. Be it resolved to hire Melissa Lavaggio as parking lot attendant for the Rock City Municipal Parking Lot at an hourly rate of $16.36 per hour beginning May 29th, 2020 through October 31st, 2020, full-time seasonal.
Second.
Any
Question?
questions?
Yeah, just how do we, I know we talked about it. How do we resolve protecting her in terms of?
Right now, she's comfortable because she can keep enough of distance. I've told her if she wants plexiglass, we'll put that up. So far, she does not feel, she feels like she's able to keep distance with the masks and the gloves. But as I said, we're happy to provide the plexiglass if she feels that's a need. It's not been very busy so far. If it starts to pick up, you know, she may feel the need for that, but.
Okay.
Yeah, did we finalize the rate?
It's at $5 now. You know, we can continue to talk about that. It only takes a resolution. And again, the concern for years has been that, you know, if you go to $6, it's hard to make change, or $7. Melissa doesn't have any qualms about that. She feels like, you know, if she got enough singles, she could make little packets of, say we made it $7, she could have little $3 packets ready to go. So she's quite comfortable with that, doesn't see it as an issue. So think about it, and at the next meeting or the following meeting, we could entertain a motion. So with that,
the town residents are still free.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and they can come see Jackie, right, if for a permit, Jackie or Lynn, right?
Yes.
There it is, Jackie.
That was good, Jackie.
And what about, I remember last year I had a complaint from an employee who was a waitress, I believe, in one of the restaurants. And she didn't live in town. And she tried to park there one day and she was refused, and she had to pay all day. Do we have any contingencies for that? Or, I mean, I know there's a
What I would say
parking lot
is
across the street.
50 feet further down the road is a free lot.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
know,
that's they should be sending all their employees to that lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People should be talking about this and directing people. But also, these people don't make a lot of money, so, you know.
And if we didn't have that free, if that was a charged lot, then I think we would have a different, I would feel differently. But the free lot's there for them to park in. You know, I don't think it's out of line to send them over there. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved to authorize the supervisor to execute the easement documents, see attached, for 30 Oriole Drive, Woodstock, New York, and 32 Oriole Drive, Woodstock, New York, to permit the Woodstock Highway Superintendent to create and maintain road drainage structures. Second, for purpose of discussion.
I'll second it.
So Mike and I, he took me down there actually last fall. There's a spot on Oriole Drive where there's terrible runoff and it's running down through yards. What Mike would like to do is obtain these easements and then put some drainage ditches and piping down behind, from the road down to the property, to the back end of the property where there's a drainage ditch or a small creek. He needs an easement to do this. Dennis Larios, Bernier Larios did up some sketches, and Rod Fudafas created the easement. They have been down to the property owner the two property owners. I know that they're having their attorney take a look at it. So, and that's about it. This will allow Mike to get the water off the road there and keep those homes a little drier. Any questions?
So, and you may have already answered this in an email, and sorry if I didn't get the answer, but so the people who own 30 Oriole and 32 Oriole Drive, they're all behind this, or is this, do they have concerns?
In general, they're all in favor of it. You know, they just want to have their attorney look at the easement and give it their blessing. But the general concept, yes, they want these put in because it'll permit their properties to be a little safer and drier.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
It'll be a benefit to them. Any other questions? Going once, twice, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved, the Woodstock Town Board sponsored the Woodstock Farm Festival by letting them set up in the paid town parking lot.
Second.
For purpose of discussion. So we did have a conversation about this a while back to allow them to temporarily set up. At some point, the hope is that Colony will complete their site plan before the planning board, and that the farm festival would be incorporated into that. In the meantime, we're trying to become a bronze community, and one of the things that we get points for is sponsoring or helping farm festivals and farm markets. So the reason for this is they need proof that we're doing it. So this resolution would satisfy that. So we've already allowed them to set up. We did it, you know, in an informal agreement. So that's what this resolution is about, so we can get our points for bronze.
What's
Any
the
questions?
berm? What's the berm around the end of the parking lot? What's going on with that?
That's been there for a while. It's I think slightly bigger. That's Neil. So I guess, and I know he and Mike have talked about this. There has always been runoff that
Yeah, I see it's wet in there. I just was
the parking lot pitches that way. I know that Mike and he and I had a brief conversation a while back about it. At some point, we'll probably do some better catch basins. But what Neil did is put that in so that the water's not running from our lot into his property. So, and it kind of pushes it. There is a catch basin down in that corner there.
and the falafel's back.
Is he back? Did you have?
Yeah.
Was he there this weekend or this Wednesday?
Last Wednesday, yeah.
Okay, as good as ever.
Good as ever.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So then
Why
you'll
are they
support.
moving? Why are they moving?
You know, I'd asked them. I think that they thought it was a better location. I think the town, the board all agreed it was better. We don't have to close down a road. It's less work for them not having to close down the road. It's more contained. And ultimately, when they get in on the colony backyard, you know, that it'll be even easier for them. Right now, they have to barricade off part of the parking lot. So I think just for ease. And most people coming, you know, it being where they were was no great advantage. People come and they park and they get out and they it's right there. So it's as easy as when they were over in Houst. I think Houst was very gracious in allowing them to be there all these years. But, you know, in all honesty, I think it made their business a little bit more difficult on Wednesday afternoons, you know, because they really, I think they lost business. They never asked them to leave. I want to be clear about that. It was the Farm Festival, but House certainly, I don't think they're upset about it. So,
Hey, Bill, just
Yeah.
quick, the liability on this, somebody gets hurt, trips,
you know,
whatever.
it's our lot. We have that liability.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay.
Yeah, nothing's changed. So we do have the liability. It's still there, and it, you know, it's a parking lot. So
Yeah.
good question, though. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved to hire Carson D. Hoteling as full-time seasonal help for the Highway Department at $13.98 per hour starting June 8th, 2020 and ending October 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You know, I want to give, we do this all the time, but a big shout out to Mike and Boney and all the guys down there. I don't know if you've had opportunity or noticed yet. I'll remind you that thanks in part to Ashley and Heather, we got that nice $208,000 grant, and with the help of the cemetery task force. And one of the big ticket items was $55,000 to pave the cemetery roads. And so that's been completed. There's one small section going into the cemetery, but it's the best paving job I've ever seen. We had two new young guys on the paver. They want to learn. They're eager. Scott was driving it, and they were learning how to do the leveling out. It's just a wonderful job. It's really gonna improve that over there. Unfortunately, at some point, one of the big trucks going into the cemetery hit one of the piers, which we do have money in the grant to actually dismantle those piers and rebuild them. But now the question becomes that maybe we might want to consider not rebuilding those two. There are 4 piers there right now. We might take the 2 middle ones down, leave the 2 outer ones, and make a wider entrance going in. I can tell you, in my regular size pickup truck, it's a task getting through that gate. You want to be paying attention to where my mirrors are almost hitting the gates on either side. I can also tell you that that pier has been hit 3 times since we've taken possession of the cemetery by, I think one was a hearse, one was the fireworks truck, and now this one. So we have opportunity now. So Mike, if you go, you'll see that there's a small section right at the entrance that did not get paved. We wanted to talk and have the task force take a look at it and talk with Mike about the possibility of widening that a little bit. So, but with that, everything else is done. And sometime a little later in the year, they'll go around and grade the edges with some topsoil and put grass in. So anyway, great job by Mike and the guys. So.
Just on the pillars, I mean, we did a similar thing at the entrance to Como.
Yeah, for the same reason.
Yeah, and my only concern, I mean, you do have that 1835 insert on the one pillar that got hit.
Mm-hmm.
We need to maintain that. I mean,
Absolutely.
maybe we can just move them each a couple of feet each way or something like. Let's look at it. Let the task force make a recommendation too.
So what I would tell you, Richard, is that we have in the grant that we got, we have $17,000 or $18,000, and what that money was for was to totally take down and rebuild 3 of the 5 stone piers and then repair the other 2. So we would have more than enough money if we took those 2 piers down and rebuilt the other 2 piers and put that back in there. So we already talked about that. We're in agreement with you.
Let's talk about it. Okay.
So, any other questions?
Bill, I just wanted to bring up, I don't know if any of you knew or maybe saw it, but, you know, on Saturday we had that maybe 20-minute storm, something like that. And basically I saw, you know, video of Tinker Street like a river again. And so I'm just seeing, you know, hearing from folks that are wondering, you know, why is it the same? Or some folks were thinking, felt like it was worse. Even though, you know, the town necessarily didn't do the project. But I just wanted to know, did you want to speak to that at all? And also, I'm curious, you know, obviously they're not coming back next week to work on it, but, you know, are we notifying someone that this is, you know, the outcome? Because I think people are upset that, you know, traffic and business was disrupted for the whole summer and everybody kind of went through the, you know, inconvenience of that, and then they're saying, here we are, and it's the same thing. So
It's working just the way it was designed to work, Reggie.
okay,
What?
so it's because folks are saying it's like
I don't, I'm not buying that.
Bill, you want to say that again? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. They got all those.
You guys talk to the engineer. They'll tell you, and the DOT will tell you it's doing its job, because if you looked, as soon as the rain let up, the water drained, and there was no water on the
Yeah,
road.
it goes downhill.
Yes, but there were no puddles. Once it stopped raining, I mean, there was a tremendous amount of rain in 20 minutes there.
Yeah. But they don't catch the basins. That's what I think Reggie's referring to.
Yeah, they catch them the very edge of it, and it's unfortunate that it couldn't be moved over a little bit more, but they stretched it as far as they could. Those basins had to be pushed out that far because of the.
No, I understand that, but the angling of the blacktop should have directed the water more into the basin.
The design calls for no more deflection than what they had, because that's an inverted U or a V. I agree with you, but again, if you talk to the engineers and the DOT, they're very happy with it.
They don't live here.
They're not walking down the
But
street.
again,
flying through.
the main reason was to make sure that the road didn't flood and that the water, as soon as it came down, had a place to go. And it runs and it drains out. You remember the puddle that used to be down at Brook Road, and that sat there for hours.
I remember the water feature at the bottom.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. From Brook Road to the bridge there. That doesn't happen anymore. It all drains.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't drain when it gets to the bottom, but the water does run around the top 3 grates in the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're not set low enough.
It's that the line, the line should have went out another 6 inches or a foot. But again, DOT did not want too much of a swale, because their problem was when the plows go across it in the wintertime.
They don't clean it out, yeah.
Yes. So the deeper that goes, the worse it is. And when you have a 1-on-12 pitch or whatever, for every foot you go out, it's another inch down. And, that was what DOT approved. So, and again, listen, the first time when they paved it and I looked at it and I called John Riley from DOT and I said, look, he says, it's working fine. What are you talking about? The water's off the road. So
it was never on the hill. I mean, it didn't puddle on the hill. What the complaint is that cars go by and
I understand what the complaint is.
People and they're splashing the businesses.
Yeah.
So that really has not changed.
Yeah, but what's changed is that the water doesn't lay on the road for hours. It comes down.
Well, some puddles by the bridge, but they're not as bad as they used to be.
I think it puddles on the other side of the bridge, which wasn't part of the project.
No.
Listen, you're shooting the messenger here. This is the way it was designed. I've brought this up to them. Everybody is happy.
We talked about it, but when we get these storms and we see the videos, it's hard to defend it.
Well, again, it's what the DOT approved, and they're very happy with the way it works. Their problem is in the wintertime, if they have a buildup of ice and snow, they're afraid of car accidents.
Well, they approved the first one, which didn't work.
They approved the first one, and they got to approve the second one.
Okay, well, I just wanted, nobody should, at least personally, I'm not, but I just thought it's something that people have been thinking about and we're curious about. So thank you.
Yeah. Again, people don't maybe want to hear it when that water's flowing, but the water didn't stay on the road. It got down to the bottom and it eventually got into a catch basin and it didn't pool. And that's all the DOT cares about. The water running down. And it's not that happens on every rainstorm. The 20 minutes rainstorm we had the other day was a torrential downpour. And as soon as it stopped raining, it cleared up pretty quickly. So, couple of other things. I did do that emergency declaration that I had mentioned to you guys last week.
Where is the declaration, Bill?
I can email you a copy of it.
No, where did you publicize it? Is it out there? I've not seen it.
It's getting publicized. It should be in the paper. So, and I've also appointed Donald Allen to work with the building department.
Let's go back. Today on Facebook appears a form that people fill out. Businesses fill out, right?
Ashley, you put the form up? Yeah.
Okay. And it talks about an emergency declaration, but I've not seen the emergency declaration because it says nothing in this form about submitting plans or how they're dealing with COVID or anything like that. So I'm at a bit of a loss because in that form, doesn't indicate that they have to submit anything.
I'll have to take a look at it, not the form that I saw.
Didn't write it?
What?
Who wrote it?
That's not on the form that I have.
The one
It
that's on
does talk
Facebook.
about- I'll send it to you, Richard.
No, I've read the one on Facebook.
Well, maybe we posted the wrong one by mistake, but there's about 4 pages.
No, it's 2 pages.
Okay, so I may have
Unless something else got added since this afternoon.
I may have sent Ashley the wrong one then, because initially it was 2 pages.
Okay, well, should she take it down then until, is it the wrong thing now, or?
Yeah, well, when we're done with the meeting, Ashley, I'll make sure you have the right one.
Okay.
Because also, I think the chamber sent it out as well.
And I'll double check with them.
So you declared a state of emergency.
Yes, so the sections of the zoning law, section, I think it's 74, dealing with site plan review for any modifications dealing, for any site plan review that deals with modifications due to the COVID-19, do not need to go to the planning board. And this will be for till October 31st, or at such time prior to that the governor deems that businesses can go back to full operation.
So they will submit plans to you?
They'll go to the building department, and Donald Allen will be working with them. I reached out to Donald. He's volunteered to do this. Donald was a deputy fire chief down in Kingston. He helped run their building department, their zoning department. He was a member of our zoning board for a number of years, as well as our planning board. So he's got experience in all 3 areas, and he will review these with Ellen and Butch and give the green light or make recommendations for changes or not permit it at all.
Will they have to submit plans about how they're dealing with COVID?
So what they have to do is submit plans on how they're dealing with COVID. Actually, they don't have to submit them. They have to file an application to have on premises with how they're dealing with COVID.
Right. Will that be submitted with?
Let me finish.
Okay.
Yes. Part of the application requires that they send us a copy of that plan. So that will be included in there. Actually, I can send it right now.
No, because the original one I read that you sent around the state of emergency did not have anything about COVID in it. So.
You know what? I'm not going to try and do it right now, Richard. As soon as we end the meeting, I'll.
That's fine.
Make sure
Yeah, I thought the one I saw did have COVID in it. The one I saw that you sent around, Bill, I thought I did see a COVID, state of emergency document. So I thought I did.
No, but it didn't detail plans that they have to submit.
Well, the state of emergency. The state of emergency.
Mass disinfecting and all those things.
The state of emergency doesn't spell that out, but the application does.
Right, but that was not, I don't think that was the original. Okay, go ahead. That wasn't originally in there, I don't think.
Well, the state of emergency that I read, Bill, that you sent around did say what you said, bypassing the planning board, but still sending the information to the building department. So that's what I recall from what you said us.
Right, but I'm talking about plans in terms of how they deal with customers in terms of COVID.
That's all on the application.
Right.
Actually, I worked with Dennis Doyle at the county to put together the application criteria. So if you have,
There's a state one already out there, I think.
there's a state application in dealing with COVID. That's what they have to.
I can send it to you. I thought I did send it to you. But.
Yeah, and that's what they have to provide to us, as well as their plan of what they want to do. You know, say somebody wants to put, for instance, I think Cucina wants to put 6 or 8 tables out on the lawn. They all have to comply with the distancing and whatnot, and all the requirements that the state has put out with regard to COVID. And the criteria spells that out. So, any other, Reggie?
Yes. So we've talked a lot about water tonight. Big Deep and Little Deep.
Oh, okay. Are we done with the emergency?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about that?
I
Relena?
actually have to hop off, unfortunately.
Okay.
I have another meeting. Sorry.
Thank you for
But
being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chief, for coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Reggie, you have the floor.
Yes. So Big Deep and Little Deep. I thought we should discuss just as a board to come to consensus and to kind of get clarity for ourselves on, you know, what our final word is going to be. Basically, I think a number of us, we texted over the weekend. Some of us did, and talked about the number, you know, folks that were there, realizing that people are still parking on 212, and that even though we talked about Big Deep, that certainly people are parking, you know, at Little Deep, and you can just walk up. So something that kind of we missed there, I think, not intentionally, but either way, that's where we are. So just talking, you know, hearing from the rest of the board about ideas. I know I talked to Lauren and Richard also. I think Laura and I had a chance to talk, or we talked briefly about it. But I thought I would bring it up and see where we land.
So just to recap where we are, I think we've closed Big Deep, but not Little Deep. And so people, as you said, Reggie, are parking at Little Deep and walking to Big Deep. And your question is, should we take different action from what we're doing?
Right. You know, because basically it's not really stopping anything. And, you know, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. So when you see all the cars, and again, I know we only have 2 officers, and Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to it at all, but to have them be tasked with, when I spoke with Lauren, you know, almost 6,000 people are in town. You got 2 officers on. To have them down there being parking enforcement or writing out tickets does not seem like the best use of their time. You know, so do we just say, listen, we'll have signs up encouraging social distancing, and if you can't, to please wear a mask, or, you know, are we going to close it in some more permanent way, or just to explore the options here and to get to some, again, to get to a final word on it.
The parking situation, Reggie, you know, the officers do go down, you know, they have been issuing tickets on, you know, Gitnick Road, and, you know, and if they're out, you know, in the roadway, you know, along Cena Road, but, you know, I mean, they seem to take it in stride, you know, that doesn't seem to be impacting them too much. You know, it's not that far from the village, and, you know, they go down and, you know, and they're back in the village within a few minutes.
So you're saying, Chief, then for you, then that's okay to have them go down there?
Yes, you know, I'd like to see a little bit more signage, you know, to kind of, you know, educate people, you know, that they can't park along, you know, Gitnick Road, you know, section, but if they park the vehicle on the roadway, it's against the law, you know, it's obstructing traffic, you know, so you don't necessarily need a sign, but people need to be educated, you know, that they shouldn't be parking, you know, if it's going to impact, you know, the roadway, and, you know, they're the ones that we're definitely enforcing. We're trying to educate people as best we can when we see them, you know, and, you know, and the ones that we can't do, they don't get to receive tickets.
Yeah. So Reggie, was your question, was it, I know Clayton's addressing when people park illegally, but Reggie, were you addressing people actually going to the water, the side, you know, the edge of the water themselves? So you're asking whether people are going to police that, and it sounds like Clayton is talking about policing the improper parking as opposed to policing, as opposed to walking into Big Deep and looking for masks. He doesn't sound like he's doing that.
Right.
Yeah, that would be definitely more labor intensive,
Right.
to have an officer, especially on a weekend, you'll out of the vehicle, you'll 5 minutes from, let's say, the roadway, you get an emergency call. It's going to, that would certainly impact the response time to an emergency elsewhere.
Yeah. And I guess as far as putting more signage up, 212 is a state road, and then Xena Road, I guess, is a county road. So I guess I'm not sure, making signs is one thing, being permitted to put them up is a different question. So if more signage would help, would we be allowed to put signs even if we had them?
Yeah. You would, like the state DOT, we would have to apply for the state DOT to actually, to allow them signs to be put up, or they would have to put them up, or the county. Gitnick Road is the town road, so we could actually do that ourselves. And that seems to be where the worst problem is. That they're going down that side road and they're parking, and it's a narrow road already. And there's not enough room to pull. In most places, their cars totally off the roadway.
Just keep in mind, though, that no parking signs that we put up are not legally enforceable unless we do a local law, which takes a good 6 to 8 weeks. However, what I did talk to the chief about, and with Mike Reynolds a little bit about, and I'm going to follow up with him, is that we could technically put up no parking signs and write tickets for parking on pavements. So technically, they're not getting a ticket for parking there, but for actually being on the pavements.
Yes, for obstructing the driving lane. Yes, it's just like we did up on the Beach Mountain and McDaniel Road a couple of years ago.
Well, I have the perfect solution.
Yes,
I've said this before, and everybody thought I was joking, but we should give it to the Land Conservancy. I'm serious.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have to tell them; just give it to them, because they probably don't want it. They probably wouldn't take it. But if we just give it to them, well, it's not our problem anymore.
Yeah. Then they would have to certainly you self-police it. And if people did that, it would certainly help out. But it's and most people are very good about getting off the road. Except what happens is one vehicle parks in the wrong place, and it seems to be like a domino effect. People even up on Meats Mountain, there'd be a ton of signs, and the officers go up there, and they'll issue tickets, and it's just part of our job, but we'd rather not have the road impacted, in case we had an emergency, had fire trucks through.
And the writing of the tickets has seemed to alleviate that. I know Gitnick Road was not as bad this weekend as it had been in past. The one other thing that and I'll know better again tomorrow because we're going down to check. The one thing that has seemed to help is that we're not getting the big groups from out of town who are coming with barbecues and food and staying the whole day. Most of the vehicles going in there are locals who are going in for a quick hike or a quick dip and then out. So it is, my biggest concern was the garbage down there and having to expend the manpower every week to have maintenance clean it. That problem has resolved, at least for the moment. Al is going in there tomorrow just to check again. He checked last week and it was all pretty good. So in that sense, it is helping.
Yeah, but summer has just begun.
Yeah, and it may fail. We said that at the very beginning. And if it doesn't work and there's a mess down there, then we're going to have to decide the next step. To write tickets, to have the police write tickets, that the property has to be posted legally and much more than it presently is. So if that's the route we want to go, that's what we'll have to do. But it also then becomes more difficult to weed out. That means the locals can't go in there and nobody can go in there. So I'm willing to, keep trying what we're doing and see how it progresses.
Right.
but I think, Reggie, we should continue to keep talking about it. It's, I'm under no illusions that it's all going to be perfect next weekend.
Right.
And if we have to tweak it, if we have to do different signage, if we have to put the no parking signs up down there on Gitnick and Wardwell Lane. Wardwell Lane is actually the other one where people were parking and kind of out in the road. And I was down there today. I saw a lot of yellow tickets on cars.
Okay.
So here's the question that confuses people. Is Big Deep open or is it closed?
Technically, it's closed.
But it's not.
Well, people are going in. It's closed, but people are ignoring that, it sounds like.
I mean,
it's closed. There are no trespassing signs.
But does mortar hold the blocks together, or does it hold them apart?
That's
If
the
there's no
thought for the day.
trespassing, then are people trespassing?
What?
If there's no trespassing signs, then people are trespassing, right?
Correct.
So they could be fined or ticketed or for that. Is that what you're saying? I don't get what's going on. We got one side open, the other side closed. People are.
That's what I was taught. Yes, that's why I brought it up.
And that's where the public confusion is. And that's what you see on, you see it on Facebook and all this stuff.
Do you want to close it all? I mean, it was your, yeah, neither do I. I'm happy with what we have. I'm happy to continue the way we're going and see, as Iris pointed out, the real summer's not here yet. Garbage is the number one thing. If we can keep garbage down and keep the huge crowds at bay, I'll consider that a success.
And I think the conversation a few weeks ago came up around COVID, actually. I mean, yes, trash was a piece of it, but I think we were talking about social distancing and being concerned about that. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else recall that?
Yeah, that's why we were talking about it, sure.
Yeah. So
I think my oh, sorry, Reggie, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was less concerned about the COVID because there's plenty of room. It's outdoors, people can spread. But the part of the COVID I was concerned about was having to send the maintenance guys down there to clean up other people's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And that, on a good day, that's not a pleasant task. And right now, I mean, maintenance, we have buildings that are closed, but they're stretched thin because, there's so much additional cleaning to keep the buildings we have open and deal with the COVID. And the deep, the cleanings, the buildings are, so to me, I can't spare, it would be tough to spare those guys having to go down there for, a half a day every week to clean up garbage. You guys may feel different. I mean, it's a board decision.
Silence.
Well, I would do what Bill said and watch. I mean, we took an action before to close Big Deep, keep the leap open. Not a perfect solution. I appreciate that the police department is giving tickets for cars who are parked illegally on the different roads. It's something that they can do, and it's doable in terms of not spreading them too thin to do that. And I know Bill said we can watch it. I'm okay with the see how it goes plan. I'm okay with that.
It was my understanding that we closed it in connection with the coronavirus, and we didn't close it for hiking and fishing.
Correct.
All right. So then once it gets the corona backs off, hopefully it will, and we can open it up again, we should do that and work something out with the garbage, whether we get Chris to go down there as part of his run once or twice a week, or I grew up swimming in these creeks, and I hate to close it off, but it's keeping it clean, and it's a problem. But until the virus passes, we don't have our swimming pools open. We don't have any of that stuff open.
Right, and I think we should plan to have a summer protecting ourselves from coronavirus, because there is no medicine to cure it. There is no vaccine to keep people from getting it. So I think as far as this summer goes, we should just treat coronavirus like it's here to stay for this summer? And can we open it differently next summer for coronavirus? Maybe. But as far as this summer goes, I think every decision we should make should be on the assumption that we have coronavirus that could enter the area at any time.
You know, I think we're all really far more in agreement than disagreement. Everything you just said, Lauren, I agree with. I will tell you that Chris goes down there twice a week, or did last year. There were garbage cans down there. I was down there every weekend. I would walk in there at least once a weekend and beg people to help me keep Big Deep open by taking their trash out. And I can tell you that every Monday or Tuesday, I would go back in there, and right where those people sat, there were piles of garbage. So everybody yesed me to death, and nobody, I mean, I think I couldn't have been friendlier, nicer. They were all wonderful, charming. They were, you know, they thought, of course we'll take our garbage. Oh, that's ridiculous. Who would leave garbage? And yet every weekend, I don't know what the answer is. And it's sad to me. But, you know, it also happened up with the state at Big Deep, or the Blue Hole.
Moose, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen
And-
Catskill Falls.
Oh.
I've seen a pile of garbage up there that make you want to cry.
Yeah.
No, I've been up to Blue Hole, and it was disgusting at one point. But what the state did is they took a long-term solution, look at it, and came up with a solution. And maybe long-term, I'm not saying tonight or next week, we need to be thinking about how we can permit that, go to a permitting process, have somebody there, those types of things. Otherwise, it's going to be next summer, and we're talking about it again.
You
Go ahead.
did mention to me, Richard, you know, about the possibility of hiring a lifeguard, because that is what it would take to do permitting.
Right. Well, I mentioned it in conjunction with the fact that I didn't think we were having summer camp, and there's some kids unemployed now. You know, lifeguards unemployed. That maybe we can look in that direction.
Well, the only thing I'll tell you is only one of the
I'm
kids.
saying that's the way to go right now. I'm just saying, you know, that was my thinking.
Right. Only one of them is actually qualified to be a lifeguard. And
We have lifeguards that aren't lifeguards.
no, there's only one person that does the lifeguarding at the pool. Not all the counselors are lifeguards.
Right.
Jackie, you listening?
I am.
Is that correct, or is there two?
No, there's two lifeguards.
Two
One's
lifeguards,
a water
okay.
safety instructor, lifeguard. The other one's a lifeguard.
Okay.
Would
So-
they want to be down at Big Deep? I don't think so.
Well, I'm not saying them as particularly. I'm just saying, unless we look at it long term and what we're going to do, you know, it just keeps coming back, whether it's COVID or no COVID.
Yeah,
we're,
it's a
we're
big
back
problem.
where we were a year ago, and I'm just saying, let's think about maybe we can do something about this, and whether we permit just town residents or those types of things. I don't know. That's all got to be discussed. But
Yeah, I think you need to discuss it, Richard, with our town insurance carrier. That
yeah,
would be your
we do-
first
we
step.
we got to do all that stuff, Jackie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
That would be the first
if we
step,
don't do,
though, because
if we don't
they
start,
can guide you as
Yeah.
to whether or not that would be something that you would want to do. And then if they said no, then you could go to the next.
right? No, all that
venue.
stuff got to be done. I agree.
Yeah.
But unless we start doing it for next
Yeah.
year, we don't go anywhere.
Right. I agree.
Well,
You don't want to discuss it year after year after year.
budget comes up in September, so we can start to, if you want to look into what it would cost, yeah, I'll work with you on that, Richard,
Mm-hmm.
and we can.
Reggie too. Reggie started all this.
Yeah, it's all
Reggie.
Oh, Reggie.
Put Reggie in charge?
How about Councilman Hefner and I will create our little own task force.
Task force? Okay,
The-
done.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Reg- Reggie and Richard, if I can just say something, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can't see you, unfortunately, because for whatever.
I know, you're looking at my
It's on your
bookcase.
face.
Hello.
There you
Oh,
go.
Hello, how are you?
Hey.
See, I just turned you. But
There you-
if you want to get in touch with Neimer's, David Bloodgood,
David.
and
Bloodgood.
he's the one that comes to our safety and insurance meetings. He kind of directs us.
Okay.
Talk to him about what you guys are thinking about doing and what he advises as far as town liability. Big Deep is a big liability. Little Deep's a little littler, but still a huge liability. And you got to be careful as to how much you want to allow there
Right.
and how much the town just wants to let it be kind of at your own risk. So
The other thing is that maybe we post it no swimming and take a month and just really strictly enforce that and see if that curtails it. Because again, it's not, I'm not blaming the out-of-towners necessarily, except that they are the ones coming and staying for long periods of time with big groups, with food and everything else. Whereas, most locals, they'll either go in for a quick hike or a quick dip and they're out again, they're not staying there for a long time. They don't have to worry about a rest facility. That's the other part of it is, once we start to provide.
No, you got the whole thing, yeah.
So.
hey, Bill, can I just ask you something?
Yep.
When you go down 212 and the Big Deep entrance is barricaded off, there's no signage there, correct?
There was, I think
I didn't see any signage.
there was. I think that they keep throwing it down. I think Alice put it up a couple of times.
So if they put that signage back up or keep it up every day, and then from where Little Deep turns into Big Deep, maybe put a barricade across that.
Right.
And I mean, people call me all the time. I'm getting multiple calls daily about Big Deep being open. I keep telling them that it's closed, but they say there's no sign that says that it is, just that you can't drive in there.
I will talk to Mike about both parking signs and better signage.
I mean, that might help also. If they see a sign, somebody's out of town and they see a sign that says Big Deep is closed, maybe they won't park there.
Right.
Out on 212. Just a thought.
Should also be signage at Little Deep basically saying the same thing.
Right, I agree. All right, back to my bookcase.
Thanks, Josh.
The other thing that one of the Woodstock's finest told me is, I agree, Bill, that some of this is keeping the large groups from the city or whatever out, some of it. But the cops can't say you can't go in. So if people want to go in, they're going in. And then the cops can't say, well, you're not a Woodstock resident. So
correct. It's got to be equal.
If you make a no trespassing, it's got to apply to everybody.
Exactly.
And there's basically 3 areas you got to close off. The Big Deep entrance. The entrance down by the wastewater plant, where people have been walking in, accessing the property through there, and also from the Little Deep side, that trail. So you'd have to certainly put some signage, in along that trail going up along the stream, in order to hit it, at all 3 points.
Okay.
So ultimately, what we're talking about, I don't think anybody wants to close it. I mean, that would go against a lot of Woodstock history, but we do need to control it somehow better. That's it.
We have a meeting next Tuesday. Let me talk to Mike, and then let's all think about it and have round 2 of this conversation next week, and see if anybody else has got any ideas. I'm open to suggestions.
Okay.
So, one other quick note that I wanted to deliver from the summer camp committee and I've talked to each board member individually, and I think we were all in agreement with this. But to make it official, due to the extremely limited COVID-19 restrictions on summer camps, the Woodstock Summer Camp Recreation Program is canceled for the 2020 season. The governor did recently permit that summer camps could open on June 29th. Jackie, have we seen guidelines yet?
We have seen the guidelines, and there's no way that we can proactively abide by those guidelines with our small area.
Yeah.
People that have, or places that have big recreation areas, they can. We don't have the funds, nor do we have the area that can comply with those restrictions. So it's a good thing to close it down.
And we're still not sure about whether the pool could be open or not, correct?
The pool could be open, but the restrictions would be so silly that,
Well, the health department hasn't said whether we could open the pool yet.
No, the health department has not. And,
Yeah.
and they could be stricter than the state guidelines. The state guidelines say that we can, but even those guidelines are very, very strict. And then the county coming in could be even worse. So we don't know. You're right. We don't know if that pool could be opened.
Right. Okay. Anybody else have anything else to?
Bill, can I go back? You're going to meet with the state? I'm sorry.
Yes. Go ahead, Richard.
Got an update on that?
Tell me about the
Tinker Street, Mill Hill paving.
Yeah, so nothing's going to happen. Well, I shouldn't say that. We looked at a couple of different areas, and they're going to be doing, for a couple of the most extreme potholes, they have this new liquid, I guess they've had it a couple of years, that they pour into it, they let it set up, and it really lasts a lot longer. So they're going to do that in a couple of small areas. The other thing, and this is not going to happen till the fall, but at least I'm hopeful that it's going to happen, is there are 2 or 3 spots where they're actually going to come and grind out and repave. One of them, I believe, is across from out from the toy store. There's a couple of bad holes right there. And the liquid is not really good for the hill because it runs out. So they're going to do a small grinding there. Then,
will the basins catch it? No.
What's that? We'll see. I'll let you be the judge of that. Then they're going to do right by the crosswalk in the middle of town. They're going to grind that out. Now, part of the catch there is, though, if they do that, we have to upgrade the crosswalks, and they don't have the money to do that. But we do have some money in that capital fund for the bridge and sidewalk repair. So if the town was willing, we could do that and get them to grind that section out. The other is, if you remember when Laura and I, about 2 years ago, we walked through with the safety group looking at different aspects. One of the things we talked about was eliminating that crosswalk going over to Clouds. You know, you've got the V crosswalks there. And we had kind of said it would be good to eliminate that because as you're coming up the hill, it's a terrible blind spot. The state said if they came in and did the grinding that they'd be willing to get rid of that crosswalk. And so there'd just be the one crosswalk from Shindig over to the green and then from the green over to Clouds, which I think will improve that intersection quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying that a long time. That's a dangerous crosswalk.
Yes. Then the other is down by Joshua's, by Tannery Brook. They would come in and do the same thing. They'd grind out 50 or 60 feet, 70 feet, and re-blacktop that. They don't hit any crosswalks there, so there's no issues there. The other thing that I approached them just today, and I'm going to call them back tomorrow to continue the conversation. So if you recall, we've talked about the possibility of a footbridge down there by the church across from the hardware store. And I watched people the other day, you know, walking around the bridge abutment. And to me, it makes more sense if we just had the sidewalk continue from one side of the abutment to the other and go around. Originally, DOT was not thrilled about that, but I must have hit them in a moment of weakness, and they said that they'd actually consider it. And so what we could do is either with concrete or blacktop is instead of going on the other side across the stream, we would do that repair out on the street. You know, the DOT, they don't love that because when they're plowing in the winter, it creates an obstruction. But since they are coming into the middle of town where there are parked cars anyway, I think they're feeling that maybe they might possibly be willing to consider it. So I'm going to pursue that and see what they say. And, you know, if there's agreement there, I'll come back to you guys and see if you want to spend the money to do it. The other thing that I talked about with Mike is down on at the Tannery Brook intersection You know, on the one side, we have the little wooden deck on the sidewalk. On the other side, there's blacktop up on the sidewalk, and it's in terrible, terrible condition. The town is responsible for the sidewalks over the bridges. So I'm asking Mike to give us a price to remove that blacktop and then fix that sidewalk section going back 1 or 2 sections towards town. So he's going to come up, and that'll be something we'll consider in the next month or so.
Okay.
Possibly good news. Thanks for bringing it up, Richard.
No, but seems with all that work, it almost seems simpler just to pave the whole damn thing from Joshua down to the top of the hill.
I agree with you. It's ridiculous. And they don't have the money to do the whole thing right now. If they just, I mean, we're talking about less than a mile from where we finished on Mill Hill out towards the rescue squad.
Well, yeah, but even just the center of town, what's that? Less than a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, I agree. But if they do it piecemeal, it doesn't trigger as many conditions for them. They can get away with a smaller job.
Right. The trouble is, if they do a piecemeal, it projects out even longer before they ever come back and do it right. So
Possibly.
Bill?
Iris?
Yeah, I don't get it on the crosswalk, eliminating that crosswalk, because so many people want to go from Shindig over to another corner of Cloud. And if you take that away and people are crossing at the Shindig to the green side, then cars are going to end up stopping in the middle, because that's when they'll see people going across. They won't stop before the intersection. They'll end up stopping partly into it.
But here's that may be, but the problem is, Iris, I can't tell you how many people I've heard from, including myself, come up because of the way cars are designed today. I don't know what it is. There's a terrible blind spot. And I can't tell you how often I've experienced myself where I'll be coming up the hill there, and all of a sudden I catch somebody who's halfway across, and I'm never going that fast, but you have to react quickly. It's a miracle that nobody's been hit there, as far as I'm concerned. And Richard, I think you agree.
Oh no, I've almost hit.
Yeah, I just
It's
think
a
you'll
blind
have
spot.
more
understand.
problems taking that crosswalk away.
But Iris, when you're coming downtown, right, and someone steps out to go over the clouds and you stop for them, where are you? You're in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah.
Well, no, not if the crosswalk is there, then you're stopping before the crosswalk.
Yeah, well, just to clarify,
He's saying from the other side,
yeah, so
coming into town.
if you're coming from Bearsville, so you're saying
Right.
if you're coming from Bearsville, then
Right.
what is the second crosswalk when you're coming from Bearsville? That's what you don't see to come around the corner. So you're saying the problem's coming from Bearsville, not coming up 212 from 375, but coming from Bearsville.
Wow,
You're
the
saying
pro-
that's the problem.
The
No,
problem that I'm
Bill
talking
was saying
about is
coming up the hill.
Well,
Yeah,
can
but
tell from-
you got
yeah,
people
there's two
coming
ways to
down
come
the
up.
hill.
There's 2 ways to come up the hill. You can come up the hill. There's a hill from Joshua's coming up, and then there's a hill from
All right,
CBS
coming up from 375. When you're coming up that hill from 375 from Mill Hill, there's a blind spot for many people. Maybe not
is.
all cars, but many
No,
cars.
But
Yeah.
if it's a blind spot for the first crosswalk going to Clouds, wouldn't there also be a blind spot for the crosswalk
No,
going to the green?
not for me,
But
because
they're right next to each other. If you
Yeah,
That's
can't
because
see
you're
the-
in a big truck.
I'm telling you that a lot of people complain about it because people are further away from you and you have a little bit of time to straighten out. Listen, they're both problematic. I don't disagree with that. It would be better to be on a straightaway, but it's that lower one closer to Mill Hill that's the most problematic
Yeah.
for the most number of people.
Well, the other thing that I will say, if the Clouds crosswalk went away, if you were coming from Rock City Road and want to make a left, then you wouldn't have people coming through a crosswalk. The people going to the crosswalk from Shindig over to the green would be stopping traffic coming both directions, and you would be able to make a left turn onto 212 from Rock City. So one advantage of getting rid of that crosswalk might be help traffic that's on Rock City.
That's a
I think
possibility.
people, because there's a corner at Clouds, they're going to go there whether there's a crosswalk there or not.
Well, and speaking of that, we had I had a conversation with a shopkeeper who was, when people get off the bus at House and then they kind of walk where there's no crosswalk, kind of partway down the hill towards Joshua's, and the shopkeeper said, well, why don't they put a crosswalk there? Well, the answer from the DOT is they never want to put a crosswalk where they don't believe it's safe. And people are going to cross all kinds of places that's not safe, but the DOT is not going to approve a crosswalk unless they agree it's safe. So just because people do it, they do all kinds of things, but making things formal requires people to agree that it's the right thing.
The other thing that I would add is that people, unfortunately, have a greater expectation of safety when they're in the crosswalk. I can't tell you how often I've watched somebody blindly step off the sidewalk and start to walk without looking both ways and checking to see. They're just assuming everybody sees them and they're stopping. At least when they're crossing in the middle out of a crosswalk, they're looking left and right a little bit more frequently. So
yeah. So what I will say about taking away the crosswalk from Shindig to Clouds is, if we're going to allow it to be taken away, we better be really, really sure, because Bill, you and I both know how hard it is to get a crosswalk back.
Mm-hmm.
So be really sure before it goes, because getting the DOT to approve a new crosswalk, if it's gone, it could be difficult.
Mm-hmm. Richard?
Well, no, just saying, I mean, I know people have to walk a little further, and that's difficult sometimes, but there is a crosswalk right along.
Yeah.
To get for the chicken to get to the other side.
Right.
Yeah, and somebody I know got hit right in the crosswalk, legally going in the crosswalk, and somebody coming zooming down and hit her.
Yeah.
I was it today or yesterday? I was in town and I watched somebody come fly down the hill. Somebody was in the crosswalk and they just flew right past them without stopping.
Yeah.
So there are people who aren't paying attention. And that's even with those big signs that DOT put up 2 years ago.
Everywhere.
Those okay.
Everywhere, every 3 feet.
Oh, there's signs there? I didn't notice.
What signs?
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone saw it, but William said in the chat box, I'm not sure who William is, but build an overpass for the pedestrians.
Oh, yay.
Bill Kimball.
There you
Oh,
go.
that's Bill Kimball. Okay.
Creative thinking. Good stuff.
Yeah, but then people would have to walk up the stairs to the crosswalk and then down the stairs off the crosswalk on the other side.
Yeah, not ADA.
All right, an escalator.
No ADA.
And that's more work than just walking across the two corners.
So anyway, so Bill, I still had an announcement before we end the meeting.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so the WEC, and hopefully the press can include this, our Woodstock Environmental Commission is down one member, so we do want to publicize, the WEC asked me to share, to hopefully publicize that, that they are down a member and happily looking for a 7th member to the WEC. There are a lot of environmental initiatives that they're looking at, and it definitely helps. I think they're a wonderful group. We have Julia is running it now, and she's wonderful. Everybody on that WEC is wonderful, but it will help having the 7th person. So if anybody is interested in the Woodstock Environmental Commission to be part of the initiatives of what they're doing to make our town better environmentally, I guess, Bill or Jackie, who takes, when people are interested in joining one of our boards and committees, who do they contact?
They email either the town clerk's office or the supervisor's office, either one, or call.
Okay.
And just let us know that they're interested.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody's interested in the Woodstock Environmental Commission, please contact the clerk's office and Jackie, or the supervisor's office and Bill.
Perfect.
All right. Anybody else got any?
I made a discovery yesterday.
Yeah.
The bears spread the garbage out across Cooper Lake Road in 2 different places.
Oh dear.
And what I found out is they don't like celery.
I don't much like celery.
Neither do I.
They ate the chicken wing bones, but they left the celery.
You know, beggars can't be choosers, Lauren. You need to teach
They're
them.
bears. They can take anything
Oh,
they want.
they can do whatever they want.
They can come in your house and rip your refrigerator apart if they wanted to.
True.
But they don't because they're rather courteous.
I do have celery in my refrigerator, though.
Well, that's what keeps it safe.
Can Woodstock declare open season on woodchucks?
Boy,
How
there's a
about
lot. I haven't
chipmunks?
seen so many woodchucks in years.
I look
Everything. I think it's because the nature is healing with us not burning all this carbon fuel. The woods is as healthy as I've seen it in years. Of course, I'm waist deep in rabbits and chipmunks and woodchucks up here.
You're not kidding.
Oh, and
But,
squirrels.
Squirrels.
I
But,
looked out the window today, and there is a woodchuck standing up on his hind legs, 2 feet from my garden, eyeing every vegetable plant in that garden.
You betcha.
Oh,
Now, last year I battled a bunch of, oh God.
Yeah.
What's the matter? You depressed?
Oh, you don't know. I gotta go take a pill.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we adjourn so you can go take it?
I hope you got enough for the whole class.
So tell me,
Actually, I raised my whole garden up 3 feet on platforms. I'm hoping the woodchucks don't have an air force or a trebuchet where they can launch somebody up in there.
did you do that for the woodchucks, or so you didn't have to bend over?
Well, me not bending over is a plus, but no, the woodchucks cleaned us out last year.
Wow.
They actually, I found one of their dens, and I think that their back door actually comes up in the garden. So, yeah, there will be blood.
There's your headline, Nick.
No woodchucks for old men. Yeah.
No
Oh, boy.
woodchucks for old men, right? You're not allowed to transport them, right? You can't transport a mammal. So
But now, wait a second, Chief. What's the law? Do we have to be 500 feet from a house to shoot a woodchuck?
From your neighbor's house.
Yeah, not your own house.
Clayton, how
Yes.
much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
Oh, you could quite a bit, I'm sure.
If a woodchuck could chuck wood.
Yeah, we changed that a little bit.
No, we
But I
don't need
can't-
your version.
Yeah, no, I can't say it here.
No, please don't.
Remember,
Can
this
we
is recorded.
Yeah,
Thank
and I
you.
want to thank Ashley and Pam for helping me set up so I can get onto the server and get all my stuff again.
Is that Ashley's? Who is that?
Sounded like Leo.
Yeah, it was probably Leo.
Hey,
He's
Leo.
running around.
Bill, I'm ready to keep coughing, so could we?
Yes.
Let's wrap it up.
Mhm.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks,
Night.
everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.